what is good for you. Those, and we know out of the many integrators, it's few who have, we are not saying those who have been attacked will not be attacked, but possibly there's something they are doing, and that's why most of them, you say, most of the issues we have put there, they say, this we are okay, this we are okay. So if these guidance are accepted as they are, adopted as they are, they'll address the issue of you, because that person will have to give your own gateway, not that gateway where you all share. But that means more cost to them, which for we are saying, if that's what it will cost, rather than losing the 100 million or 80 million, let them invest, because that way, that one who invests in a secure platform, even if you get 50 of you, that we are happy, as long as there is security. So that will be addressed that way. The downtime will come down that way. If there is any other downtime, then we shall deal with that. That's why we are saying, let's start with the minimum. Then for us, we are saying you are the king, you are the customers. What will work for you? So that as we go back to them, I'll tell them, yes, this one you are saying this, but your customers have said tick. Yeah, that's why we want your position. Thank you.
Thank you, Banasi, on that. And I think just to add on that, from Safaricom's perspective, they only want Sasra to authenticate and release those guidelines. Because remember, the infrastructure that these integrators are connecting to is Safaricom's. And therefore, they decide on who to integrate with or not to integrate with. And they have said, Sasra, you are always saying that our people are losing money using these integrators. What is the solution? So they have said, for Saccos, once Sasra issues the guidance note, any integrator which is not meeting those requirements will be kicked off the system for Saccos. Remember, by the way, integrators are integrating other things also. It is not just Saccos. So there are other things that they integrate into Safaricom platform. But for purposes of Sacco businesses, they are saying that once Sasra issues this, they are going to kick out any integrator who is not meeting those minimums. So again, the ball is both on us, but the ball is also on the integrators. So they'll either have to shape up, or they'll be kicked out of the Safaricom platform for purposes of integrating Sacco for mobile money services. That is the position of Safaricom. And if you recall yesterday, Mr. Kinoti said that even if you refuse what Sasra is giving, they will implement theirs on the other side. Because again, as a critical national infrastructure, they are concerned about their reputation, especially when people are attacked using their platform. So they also have to reduce that. Yes, I think with that we are doing at 5. So unless there is any other burning question on that item, I propose that we settle it. And as we settle it, there are other items which were raised by the CEO in his opening remarks. He had asked comments on whether there are any parts of the regulations ambao unafikiria zina kufinya sana ambao need to be relooked at. So other than the issues of auditors, I have not had any. So it looked like we are more also good to go. There was also the issue of consolidation question. He had put it to the sector. We have not had any comments. Pengine tuko sawa, tumejitosheka na vile tuko. There was also another question about, not question, but the relationship with the unit that was created, the Sacco Society's Fraud Investigations Unit, and how you relate with them, and whether they are, so far, those who have interacted with them, they have assistance, or what you want to know about it. Again, that is not commented upon. So I hope you are home and dry and happy with the situation as it pertains now. So unless there will be very other burning questions, I will be closing the session in 5 minutes. So I'll be taking only burning questions. I've seen mkubwa ako hapa anataka kuuliza swali. Yeah.
No, not a question per se. This is Pudha from Ushuru. There's an issue that was raised by Dr. Hassan on touching on governance. And I have followed through the conversation. And I really want to understand that in certain circumstances, the regulator may not be prescriptive, but sometimes they can be persuasive. And we take this in relation to some of the discussions that we have had on audits, talking about the big four not being interested in auditing Saccos, and then you interrogate and they tell you it's about the risk. It is a high risk area and they don't want to go that direction. And then you look at it, you tie that risk to governance, and you find a situation where there are a lot of overrides by the boards, by the directors. Sometimes they don't want the professionals, the management to function the way they should. And that is something that we thought either there could be a prescriptive approach. If it cannot be handled that way, then possibly you can use your other ways, persuasive ways, more so now, tomorrow, when the chairman will be joining in, just to try and persuade that they should let the professionals do their work. Thank you.
Thank you. I think, Banasio, you will make remarks. Is there any other question that is burning? Can you take the mic there? I think that question, Banasio, if you recall, Dr. Hassan had commented that CEOs are the least protected, most exposed. I think that was the comment. Please.
Good evening again. My name is Arianto from Sacco. Mine was on the issue of integrators. I think if I heard well yesterday, the Safaricom people were making presentations. They said, I think it is not a must we go through the integrators. I want, maybe as a team, because mine is an opinion, probably through a competitive, through a collective bargain, Safaricom may look into the issue, and we may even be able to bypass the integrators and, as an industry, work directly with Safaricom. And we are assured, because of their capacity, even the security of the funds will be more enhanced. So that is just my opinion, and have a good evening again. Thank you.
Thank you. I think he's pass the mic there down there, because we are about to finish. And I think as he's passing the mic, I think we're very much willing to do that. The only thing is, at the back of our mind, we should know that Safaricom is a private sector, and we don't want a situation where we are favoring one private sector. So we are proposing standards for all. If Safaricom fits the bill, so be it. If there are other fintechs around the country that fits the bill, so be it. But we did not want a situation where we wake up and say, everybody go to Safaricom. But like Safaricom said, if you want to go direct, go, you are welcome. Actually, we have engaged them severally in our offices, and they have said they will never tell you to go because they are a dominant player, so to speak, and they don't want to be seen to be lording it over other fintechs that are emerging. However, if you want or you feel that you can go direct to them, that is also okay. And I think with the engagement we are having with them, that will be quite in order. However, we will not recommend to you use Safaricom, use this fintech. We will let you as a business person to decide on which one is the best. Please.
My name is Tahir Mohammed from Sacco. My question is to Sasra. We're just requesting that Sasra should come up with the Sharia compliant guidelines that will deal with Saccos that are in line with Sharia compliant. Takwa being the first Sharia compliant Sacco, and we have seen that also Stima Sacco actually has also opened a window of Sharia compliant.
Thank you. I think that is CEO will take that, Mr. Weir and Madam Roslyn.
Okay, my name is Lydia from Table Sacco. Maybe as we discuss this issue of the integrators, we are assuming it's a short-term a stopgap because we are expecting that the shared services will be up and running soon. So maybe CEO, you can tell us how far we are in that. What are the timelines and when can we hope to have this platform? Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm taking the last questions because after I hand over to the CEO, I think I'm
Second
not
last.
coming back to the floor. Proceed.
Thank you. Jacob, my name. Yeah, yesterday you guys spoke about the amalgamation and the managers. Probably we need to know if there could be some guidelines or regulations to be able to address that. Because I think from what I'm looking, the next few years would be sitting around table within India from table Sacco to have some conversation. And we need to be honest on this. Thank you.
Thank you.
I apologize. I've asked a lot of questions and I've spoken a lot, but it's my nature. Bwana CEO, I'd like to address the white elephant in the room. We have been here for 2 days. Tomorrow is our 3rd day, but tomorrow we'll be here with our chairpersons. We'll be discussing on the guidelines on governance. So unfortunately, we never managed to discuss as ourselves without our chairs who, in every sense of the word, are our bosses, so to speak. So I'd hate to think that I'd go away without saying what I need to say on the governance issue. I'm lucky to be in a board that has 3 tier 1 corporate CEOs. I'm very lucky. I consider anytime people ask me, how do you manage 3 CEOs? I consider myself lucky. However, what I'm saying is not about STEAMA, it's just generally about the movement. And what I see is that the CEO is seen as a staff. And yes, we are staff, but in a board, you're not a staff. The board, even as per your guidelines, is an associate director with no voting rights. I hope I got that right. That's my understanding. However, what you see in the movement is that the board would take the CEO as a staff, as a mere staff, if I want to use an adverb on that. And there's so many instances, I see that in the group all the time, whereby the CEO would be asked to step out of the room so that there are discussions that can be had. So, and I hear people saying yes, good. So, hakutaka kusema, acha niseme on their behalf. So in terms of governance, and hence my first, and maybe I was not clear when I said what I did. I was hinting, so let me not hint and just paint it in black and white. The problem that is happening is that SACCOs are coming of age. And like I said, majority of the top 10 SACCOs are bigger than banks. But what is pulling us down, therefore, will be the governance structure and the position of the CEO in running the institution. When I look at the guidelines, and I hope majority of you have read them, I did read. We did a paper, we presented to our board. A very interesting discussion there. Maybe offline, you can have a discussion of what was raised. But the key thing that I really wanted to see that I'm not seeing in that guideline is, therefore, how do you come a baba, a Sasra, cough about it, so that there's clarity. Because some of the things you've put on the guideline have always been there. The fact that the CEO is part of an ex-official director is not new. It's always been there. But sometimes when you speak in a boardroom, you speak as if you're alone. And if there's no backing in terms of what you're saying, although it's in law, but if the regulator does not bring that out quite clearly, then it becomes problematic. So maybe in a way what I'm trying to say is this, that if I summarize, is that tomorrow the chairpersons will be here. And I think, in my opinion, it would be an opportunity for you as the regulator, on behalf of the rest of the board, for them to understand the position of the CEO insofar as running the institution is concerned. We are very lucky, but very unlucky. We are lucky in the sense that our model, socioeconomic, yes, it is. But on the other hand, we are quasi-political institutions. Running a Sacco is like running a political organization. to be very honest. So there's a lot of balancing as a CEO that you have to put in place. And the only thing that can guide us, and I keep on saying this, is to have the clarity in the policies, making sure internally we have the policies that can define the relationship between us and our board. But most importantly as well, is to have an act and the regulations and the guidelines that are very clear, not just for us, because we have understood them, for those who have read them. Sumela, you've understood it, right? Have the other group understood it? It's a question, right? Yes.
Yeah, we don't talk in parables. I think, you know, as a regulator, we give you a guideline and we speak out our mind what we think would fix the issues we have seen. So what I would appreciate is, what is it? We just shoot it. What is it you'd want to see? Because I do agree with you, and the law has tried to balance that even myself and all of us here, we are employees of the board. That will not change that. But they are the dynamics and the conduct of the board that, you know, undermines. And I agree, Saccos are unique because of many factors. And the question is, because you are exposed, some of you have had to be, you know, sacked, you come to us, we can't help you, we feel you. But the question here, that's why this is a CEO's forum. What is it? Because you need to tell us to clarify in the policy. I'll ask you, what is it? So shoot it, because Regulation 64 2 clarifies functionally, okay? Functionally, how you should do it. And we have used that. In fact, I'll tell you, we have taken action on board. When you as a CEO, you did as per Regulation 4, they did not act. They realized we are cornered here. So the question for you, 10 years down the line, you're in the second decade, what is it we would want to see so that that element is actually protected and guarded? That's for me. So don't sugarcoat, shoot straight. I mean, that's why we said whatever discussed here remains here.
All right, thank you. And Dede will be taking the microphone after me. It's a simple thing. You see, the way we are structured, the cooperative officers sit, like I mentioned, in the boardroom. Therefore, all advice that has to do with legal and cooperative matters are addressed through the cooperative officer. There's a good thing about that, but the key question mark here is that the right, is that the benchmark that we should have? So who's the spokesman for my regulator is myself, but only I as a CEO, and I speak on behalf of everyone else. So that's where the big gap is, that when it comes to, you've mentioned the sections you're talking about, who is the person who's addressing these sections to our boards? It's ourselves, it's Wahusika. But on the other hand, what I've normally seen is that always there'll be a distinction between what we say and sometimes a clash with the cooperative officer. So that for me is an anomaly that ideally should be fixed. And is it correct to always have a cooperative officer in each and every board meeting? Because you're bounced off. That's my sentiment. But I know Dede and Jen, I know I've provoked a few people. Go ahead.
Thank you, Hassan, and thanks CEO for allowing us to be as open as possible. And as I speak, I'm assuming those doors are not open, and therefore nothing will come out of this room. They say walls have ears, but for now, this wall will never have ears. It is very clear. There's a phrase they use, that the responsibility rests with the board. That phrase alone gives them all the authority to do what a CEO should do. A CEO should be the only employee of the board. But as Hassan says, we are staff, not the CEO. When you do your inspection, you look at the minute books of the Saccos. In the minutes, you'll see all the agenda that are there. Majority are about operational issues. So, in essence, these guys are doing our job. Nothing else. You don't have authority to do anything. They will hire, they will fire. What the CEO should do, they have taken. With only one phrase, responsibility rests with the board. So if you can come out clearly and state it. Whereas the responsibility rests with the board. Your work is to just give policies, and then implementation be done by the CEO and his management. And it should be that clear, so that going forward, when you see those things in the minute books and any other literature, you already know what it is. So we need not go about this. All of us are concerned. All of us are concerned. And we work under pressure. What he says is very clear. How can you be told that now leave us? You have been in a meeting throughout. Then you are told now, can you now leave us? What are they trying to talk about in your absence? It's not about you. If they're so sincere, they should tell you on your face that you are doing A, B, C, D, and you must correct it. So what is it that they now want you to go out and discuss? And for you, when you have the chance now to tell them to go out so that you discuss them, you don't. So that's where you want your intervention. And if you ask these people, majority of them were asked by their chairman, why is it that you have been given 2 days? And for us, it's only 1 day. What are you going to do? So unless we speak this, they will say there's something that's hidden. So just clear, governance is governance. And we could take them for training about governance. They are very good at that. And if we give them a podium to discuss about governance, they'll tell you all these things we're talking about. But when we go back to practice, something else. So let us just be fair. Let the CEOs have their space. Let them have their space. And you will notice where the CEO has been given space, things really go right. Things really go right. Because there are a lot of consultations. You can't do anything without consulting. But here, you are told, we want to do this. Who are you to say no? You are one amongst 9. Which vote do you have? Thank you.
Thank you. I think now you are asking questions. I think we had said that that was the reason why we were to sit alone without the other people. And I opened it up and I was closing down. Now I'm not sure what I'm going to do because the bell ringer said that time is out.
Okay, sorry, just
proceed.
Yes, Peter told us not to speak in parables, just to say what we'd want to see. We want to see more protection for the CEOs. And one of the ways that we could suggest is today, if the board want to hire a CEO, I'm sure they write to Sasra and they tell you. In the same way, if they want to fire a CEO, I think they should also write. Even if they said him or her on compulsory leave first, for their own reasons, they need to also notify you of their intention and cite the reason. That way, they will also think twice, and also as CEOs, will have the courage to know that if it is ethical issues, we can speak about them without worrying, because we know somebody else will be listening to this. So that is one of the very practical things that we can do within the law. Just ask the board, before you fire, notify us as the regulator. Yeah.
Thank you. And again, that is why we were asking you about the regulations for non-deposit taking. Have you seen how the non-deposit taking Sacco CEOs are protected? We put it there. It is not in yours, but it is there. There, they cannot fire a CEO just like that. They have to notify the authority, giving reasons why. So it is there. But now the question is, have you guys raised the issue? If we make a proposal to amend your regulations, it will be a problem. So you should be raised. Please proceed. I'm told there is agenda disparity. So there is another lady who wants to speak. Before you, then you speak.
Yes, my name is Grace from Joiner Sacco, and mine is about the thin line between the cooperative, the Ministry of Cooperative in Sasra, having that these are two government bodies, and that is where we have been seeing a gap because we are sitting with the Ministry of Cooperative in the boardroom, who looks like they are in the support of the board, as my fellow CEO is saying, we feel that we are standing there alone, but for them as the board members, they have the backup of the cooperative, the Ministry of Cooperative. So what's the thin line between these two bodies?
Thank you. I think as I pass over the issues now to the CEO, are there somebody else? Please give the people who have not spoken now. I think, Bwana CEO, there is that question. It has been asked now twice about whether cooperative officers, it is mandatory, they must attend board meetings, and also now how Sasra relates with the Ministry of Cooperatives. I think that is a question that has been asked twice. Please.
Thank you. My name is Dennis from here to Sacco. Jeremiah, I've heard you saying that that law is in your side. It's not on our side. The disparity is where? Why can't it trickle down and protect us? Why is it only on the regulator side? Thank you.
That one I will answer you very fast because I drafted those laws. 2010 regulations were done in 2010. I was not there. I was not very sure what was happening. But we learned from your experiences. And therefore, when myself, CEO, and the lady plus Mr. Wira were asked by the minister to draft those regulations, we told them that our experience has been that the CEOs are the most exposed people and not protected. One thing they even report to Sasra, the board goes and says, wewe ndio unapelekanga maneno kwa Sasra. And that's why we put it there. But those were regulations for the non-DTs. For us to initiate any amendments for the regulations for 2010, we must get issues. And that's why yesterday the CEO was saying, are there things which we need to update on those regulations? Because they have been overtaken by events, certain the experiences now. We are better learners. There's somebody else?
Thank you so much. I wouldn't have put it better than my two colleagues have done, so I'll not delve into the CEO board relationship. But mine is basically to request Sasra, as you meet the chairman and probably by extension the board, there is this animal supervisory committee. Please make time for them so that they understand their mandate very well. I know probably it may not be under the legal framework that you have, but it pains me when I read a 30-page report, but I don't see anything substantive other than a staff member that was found in a branch without a badge. I mean, is that a matter that we should discuss in a boardroom? Or a difference in a teller's reconciliation of 1,000? Or a staff that was transferred? So I wonder whether they want to come and advise on transfers. So please, also as you do all this animal, please also incorporate them in all these issues of governance so that we move together on this matter. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ken. That just shows you how things have changed. Those who have seen the current cooperative bill, which again we were privileged to have draft, we have killed that thing called supervisory committee and merged it with the audit committee. So it becomes a subcommittee of the board on one hand, but also a supervisory committee as an eye for the members. We have adopted the German model where you have got, it plays a dual role. One, it is an audit committee of the board, and the other side, it is an oversight committee for the members. That is how it has been addressed. And remember, there are even safeguards on what they can do, including that you cannot cross over from supervisory to the board until I think after 5 or something years have elapsed. So again, that tells you that the regulations we are implementing today are literally, some of them are obsolete. We need to relook at them. But again, thank you. We will pick that issue as one to take forward. Any other comment?
Yes. I want also to raise an issue on the human resource aspect. Ideally, the board should appoint the CEO and then call him to account in terms of the operations. When you look at the guidelines, corporate governance guidelines by Sasra, they say that the CEO shall be responsible of the human resource. But again, going by what they raised, is that you are saying the overall responsibility lies with the board. And therefore, you will find instances where the board is involved in recruitment, for example, and firing at all levels. I've worked in a number of circles
There are in circles where you'll find the board allows that they recruit the CEO and the managers, and then the CEO with his managers can recruit the other staff, and they can be able to call them to account. And then the board can properly call the CEO to account. But then in others, they want to be involved even at the lowest level, and they still want to call you to account. So I'm thinking the regulator needs to come in here and be a little bit more specific in terms of being in charge. What does it mean? That the CEO, let the board recruit the CEO, the managers, and then the management can be able to recruit the others, as long as they are reporting on whatever they are doing. Thank you.
Thank you. I think Roslyn will take that. So, of course, with our CEO and Mr. Wira, they are gurus in that area. The last question, then the CEOs takes off.
Yeah, thank you. I'm Peter Boyer from Sacco, and my observation is the Saccos have come of age from 2010, and we are trying to replicate. We are seeing the best practices in the corporate world. Why can't you also replicate the same in other areas? I come to this point, like the board has to meet every month, and every month you are the CEO, you must report on the operations. It doesn't give you time to implement the decisions for evaluation and monitoring. I've looked at the policy guidelines you wait to give on governance, and my proposal would be, why can't the board be meeting quarterly? Then the board committees can meet maybe more frequent to allow the CEO and the management and staff to implement what has been done. I also want to carry on with what you have talked about staff. The same way you have to hire to some level. You can hire, but you're also not given the latitude to fix the remuneration. You hire people, the board has to approve and they pay for a cleaner instead of just being informed. Why can't also remuneration be left to the CEO and the management to ensure you are motivating the staff under you to deliver as expectation? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I would a little bit different opinion. I think here the issue is that the board feels left out. Why? Because for you, you see you have a CBA that stipulate what is it for you there and the staff. And the members, Sasra is there every time saying you could take care of the welfare of the members. None of the regulations, none of the discussion that I've ever had talking about what is it that is there for the board. And definitely, they can't really trial the way they trial for these seats just because of the sitting allowance. And you see, we are even recommending that we even lower from 12 to 40. So I think it is the high time. Also, the regulator comes with probably a guideline of how to come up with a welfare charter that they can approve, to give a guideline how you take care for them. Because they look at you and say that you are the ignorance. It is you who is not taking care of them. And that way you are in between hard rock and uko katika hali pembamba. So ningependa kuomba pia muingilie hiyo nafasi.
Thank you. I think I'll take it back now to the panelists. There are several questions that need to be answered there. I think they are very, very many. And other than that, I think somebody had reminded me about systems audit guidelines. I think that was picked up. We will go back and do systems audit, but they will be separate from the financial ones. Yeah, because the law expected financial, so to speak, in as much as we know they are twins, system audits and financial audits. So I think when I see you, I think I'll hand it over to you and you will close completely. Thank you.
Fine, thank you. So yeah, indeed, we cannot exhaust everything today. I think, of course, I didn't hear how often we should meet, but I'll propose. I'll give you my view because I called you for this one, so I'll know when to call you next. But I'll invite my colleagues so that when I close, I close. So perhaps.
Thank you, Bwana CEO and CEOs, for your openness in where the shoe really pinches. And I know when we speak governance, indeed, circles have come from far. I reflect backwards the days when in some circles, I mean, the board was everything. I mean, the staff was there to be seen and not to be heard, and the treasurer would carry, books to their houses. Secretary of the board is the secretary doing minutes and everything else. So as we become more open and deal with the animal in the house, because when you look at many reports, one of the key challenges that Sacco still face is governance. So as we sit here, and I want to go back to what our director said yesterday, that the CEOs indeed plays a critical role in terms of operations of SACCOs. And until and unless maybe within the Sacco that we realize the role that the CEOs play to support the board, and that we have that balance and separation of power, then we still have pockets of those challenges keeping on cropping up. But I would want to say, by and large, there's been a lot of transformation. But as we continue facing these challenges, then we seek solutions that would then see us enhance governance in the institutions that we regulate. Now, there's been the appeal, the regulator, can you protect the CEOs? The law is clear in terms of the role of the CEO and in the role of the board. And indeed, the board is the governing body of the institution. And when they say that it is their responsibility, indeed it is their responsibility, but the law recognizing that it is their responsibility, it also recognizes that they are not full-time, they are not executive. So they have then to delegate this role, this responsibility, one, to the staff, the management, which is headed by the CEO, and they also delegate it further to the board committees. So in terms of operations, day-to-day operations, then they will delegate it to the committees. I want to give probably an example of when you look at probably Mwongozo and the operations, what the board must do and what it can delegate, and how then as a regulator, we can have that interface. It was a bit perturbing when somebody says, they'll go for training, they will learn different aspects, and when you ask them questions, they'll speak to the issues they've learned, but when it comes to the ground, things are different on the ground. So what does it speak to? It then speaks to probably what the values, how do they see these circles, and we was discussing with my colleague. I know as Sasra, as we do inspections, as we do our reportings, we also check on some of those governance. How are those processes then being done? And we make recommendations, including administrative directions. Again, you will find circles where there are CEOs who've been there for long. They have managed the board dynamics, because I would call it board dynamics. Some of it is really board dynamics. The board, naturally, they are a political wing of the institution. Be it in circles, be it in parastatals, wherever they are political wing. So management of the board dynamics. How can the regulator come into that space? Maybe through sensitization, but the management of the board dynamics rests with the specific institutions. And I want to tell you, the CEO still will really play a critical role in managing the board dynamics. The strategies that you put in place to manage the board dynamics, because the regulator will come like today or tomorrow, speak to the board. But after that, when it goes back to the specific institutions, it boils down on each and every specific institution. Now, when we say there was an issue of the board would want to, can SACCOs or CEOs be allowed to fix salaries or hire? I want to give an example of maybe from the parastatal part of view in terms of governance. There are certain things, because the board is the policy-making organ and oversight body of the institution. There are certain things then it has then to do. For SACCOs, the budget is approved in the AGM. The salary structure of the organization and the organization structure are then approved by the board. The board would then give the CEO, who is the head of the operations and the management, to implement the same. But the board can categorize and say for recruitment, they will recruit the CEO and maybe the top management. In governance, it says you can set the tone at the top, but what is the tone in the middle? And because the tone in the middle also needs to be right, then the board may also come to do recruitment for that top management team. So you tier it only level 1, 2, and maybe 3. For parastatals, most of them is maybe up to level 3. So all those are things then which probably institutions or SACCOs then can agree on how we manage that. And probably with the CEO and my team, then I mean with his team, then some of those conversations we can engage in those conversations. The other issue was, sorry about that, I was taking my notes on the phone. The other issue was the frequency of board meetings. If I take an example like of Sasra, when you look at the Sac Societies Act, it talks of the board shall have 12, can have up to a maximum of 12 meetings, but 2 months shall not pass without the board having a meeting. But when you go to the State Corporations Act, it says you have 4 meetings. And indeed, when we started Sasra, we used to have, after every two months, we have a meeting. But as management, then we sat and said, it's almost becoming impractical that you have a meeting, before you even implement the resolutions of the board, you're already making a report. So what did we do? As management, we then wrote a proposal to the board with the justification of why it would be good for us to have quarterly meetings. And we presented the presentations, and the board did approve, headed by the CEO. So because it is you who wears the shoes, who knows where it pinches. So you engage the board through the dynamics. I can see certain things don't happen easily in circles. But let me tell you, I see there are a number of CEOs who have also stayed for long, and then we should be learning from them. What is this magic that they are doing to manage the board, that some of them are able, that the board is recruiting only the top level and maybe not everybody else? What is it that the board is listening to them and they're able to make proposals which go through, and then we learn from each other, because these things happen. And as the director was saying yesterday, when we give examples of CEOs who play a critical role, if you shape the decisions that the board make, because whatever decision the board makes in governance is as good as the report that is prepared by the management. So it really then boils down to us again. And that is why now these forums become very important. How do we engage and share notes with those who are succeeding and those probably who are struggling? Do we have peer reviews to see how we are performing, how we support each other? Because for sure, the regulator may not do everything and may not go very prescriptive in terms of even how governance should be able to be done. But some of the things can be shaped by the CEO and the management. in our boards. Yes.
The problem. Okay.
Okay, okay. So again, those are the dynamics where age comes in. I was told there's also the founder problems. You can't come and change issues, you know. And those can then be dealt with separately. So that is what probably I would say for now. But what I would say in terms of governance, it can require us to talk and talk and talk. I think I've yeah, the other things I want to talk about, they're there in the law. I know we have the board charter, we have all those things that we're required to have, but how do they help us? That is now how engagements together can then help us to manage that. Thank you. I would ask I would give space for Owira and maybe the CEO to add.
You know, he's a director of compliance, so I thought he would aid me. Now, very well. Thank you very much. I think this is why we are having this conversation, because once we speak out and we start identifying these problems, like I said, a year down the line, we can have a conversation. What has changed? But having said, I want to clarify 2 or 3 things before I go to the substantial issue of board governance, rather. One, Sasra is there as a public body to protect public interest, and therefore we stand for competitive environment as far as integrators are concerned, and that's why it will be very easy for us to say you can all go to Safaricom, but we cannot say that, and we will not say that, and we cannot convene a meeting to come and discuss how to promote the commercial interests of a private entity. So whether you want to go, that's your decision, and will not be. I will not even encourage it to be discussed in our meeting, because I know integrators have that perception that Sasra is promoting Safaricom interests. Far from the truth. The question is the systemic importance of M-Pesa platform cannot be ignored. Whether it was offered by another body or what, you'll still engage. That is the same with the banking industry. It is gonna be the same with you, because all of you here are connected to it. So it becomes systemically important as much as is a private commercial and infrastructure. So I want to be very clear on that for us, we would want, in fact, from a concentration of risk perspective, the more integrators you have, the better, so long as they are playing by the rules. If you have it in one, then there is what you call concentration risk or key entity risk, which will just go higher. So we are happy when there are other integrators. But again, that comes with the challenges. I'll start with the soft issues. I think the question of Sharia compliant, for me, my style, I think you will bear with me. I'm a believer in an industry driven. It is very easy for us to draw the Sharia compliant issue, and we have attempted. We did amend the law. But I would be happy if you tell us, Sasra, he's called who? The Sacco CEO. Where are you? If you tell us, you're already in that market. I know Hassan is, and I know Nasefu and a number of you, I think including Sharia. You tell us, can you convene a meeting where we can discuss the emerging issues so that we can contribute to a guideline that can honor the industry driven? So if you tell me to convene, I'll convene. I'll give you a secretariat. We have a regulatory policy team to brainstorm with you what are the guidelines on Sharia compliant. Because if we pretend we are experts in a space we are not, we'll be lying to you. I have a few staff who have been trained on Sharia compliant issues, but these are products, they are more market driven. And what Stima would want to serve maybe is different from what you'd have. But I would be happy if, as an interest, you come together, you tell us, Peter, Sasra, can you host us to develop some minimum guidelines again, or some direction on Sharia compliant products? That is good, because one, as a regulatee, you know what is it Sasra will be looking for if you are to approve. Two, there's this we call Sharia advisory board. Usually there's a body to check besides the internal. Then we shall agree so that Stima, Takwa, everybody does not come with it. So we shall agree what is it. So can I throw that to you? And I will be happy to host a meeting for you to start that conversation. We develop those guidelines with you. Then you own it because you are the experts. So I throw it back to you. So on Sharia. Again, Sacco Central, I think you did ask, and I know Vera was very emphatic on that. Daktari, are you around? You're very quiet. Yes, he is a chair of the technical working group or technology working group under Sacco Central Project or Shared Digital Services. James, CEO of Amica, you are there. He's a chair of Operations Working Group, which is a business operations. And above that, there is a project steering committee shared by the directors. So they are the drivers. They are the ones driving. So I'm not the right person. Even now, I know they have been pushing the registration, but as we provide the secretariat, and right now we know Sacco Central is at the registration level with the commissioner. I think commissioner, we are expecting tomorrow, but I know it's been fast-tracked. The CS is very keen to launch it before the elections. As for the legal policy framework, you saw the cabinet, the last cabinet that sat, it was released. It's now being processed to the, but in terms of the other modalities, I will not want to take a lot of time on that because once the Sacco Central is registered, I'm told there is a meeting that will be convened. But the vision for this I explained yesterday, but I let me not take much time on that, but it's moving very fast. Amalgamation. We think this is an idea whose time has come. I know the CEO of Nation Sacco is, say perhaps we should. What is the position is last week. Joseph, is it this week or last week? When did we approve the first amalgamation request? Is it this, Joseph, is he around? We approved, actually, I think this week, a merger amalgamation proposal for a Sacco to merge, to take another Sacco. We call it amalgamation. That's the word used in the law. Regulation 83 provides for the procedure of amalgamation. So any of you who have been approached, some people are suiting you, express, first of all, when you get that, can you write to us so that we give you the guidance? But above that, so in terms of legal policy framework, there is no vacuum. It is there. I think the challenge is from a business perspective for us to change our view or perception about amalgamation as an appropriate business strategy for your growth. If we get that right, then you'll see mergers will accelerate. But today, even in the banking industry, though we are seeing a change, it has been seen as a strategy for failing institutions. Yes, it is, but it's also a positive strategy. I remember I&M acquired, merged with another one. I can't remember which, but we know others have been acquired because they're in difficulty. The law is there. I think it is for us that conversation. Our part, what we want to do beyond the existing legal framework is there's a paper, a discussion paper we should be releasing to you before the end of the year on our thoughts about merger. But the whole framing of the paper is that it is a high time we see amalgamation as a positive strategy and not just when you are dying is when you look for option. We are very encouraged by that development. You may know it, but it's not our job to disclose. I'm also been approached another Sacco that they have also been approached by another Sacco that they would want to be absorbed by that. Whatever name you use, it's amalgamation as per the law and the law guide. So I think the question is, some of these are there, they're happening, but let's first of all have our board approve the discussion policy paper to see some of our thoughts around that. I think now diving into the issue of governance, I think Rosalind is our board corporation secretary, but also has over 20 years as a cooperative officer. So she knows what you're talking about, sitting there as a cooperative officer. But I think what encourages me, and some of you were discussing yesterday, that you also acknowledge we have moved for the last 12 years, 24 years, we have made a dozen years, we have made a lot of progress. And I think what you are now touching is what we think that governance is an area we need to tighten. And the question is possibly how. Those of you who, and I invite you to actually look at the regulations 2020, they are very, what I would call very transformative ideas we are able to have in those regulations, learning from what we have learned from you. And therefore, that's why regulations 2010 needs to be looked into. But at times, the regulators don't just wake up and amend. This is why we would want you to, express some of these things in such a structured forum and others, so that we start picking, we can say, yes, this issue is raising concern, we need to change it. But the spirit of the regulations 2020 is very heavy on governance. I'll tell you, and I know some of you are doing it, it tackles the issue of governance in a big way. You are all, there is a greater protection there. There is a question of transparency in the business of the board. Those of you who have interacted with your colleagues on the other side, Danditi, will tell you that you have to disclose the board allowances by name, how many meetings, and how much. We want to enhance transparency. And for us, we are saying gradually this must be tackled, because some of these things, I think when you speak about them, yes, there'll be some noise for a year or so, but then it will settle. But some of you are already doing it. Then the question of financial reporting, there is a greater disclosure we are demanding, but even the minutes, because like you say, the business of the board, we are concerned, is the business of the board in the boardroom through committees reflective of strategy and oversight, or is it operations? Okay, and where we have, and that what we are doing is in those regulations, we have demanding, I don't know whether is it every 6 months or every quarter, the minute. We get them every 6 months, right? Every 6 months for non-DT. What do you want to do? Is to analyze, you actually say, yes, this Sacco is experiencing trouble. Can we look at how the board conduct its business? If it discusses those issues that, Ken talked about, CEO of Kenya Bank, the Kenya Bank has talked about operational, we will tell them, surely, you have a whole CEO and management. What's their job if this is what you are discussing? And now those ones, we shall even go further and tell them, we want every time you meet, we want the minute. We want to be, what are you discussing? And we make those by way of directives in some circles. Some of you have experienced that, where we demand your minutes every month, every quarter. We want now to go to the boardroom because we are not physically there. What is it you are discussing? Well, maybe the minutes we get are not necessarily correct, but through the inspection, we come to say, can we see the minutes? It is a very important thing when in our rating, what you call CAMO rating, we have not been rating M. And in the coming year, we've committed that we must address the M, and M will basically look at how effective is the governance structure of the Sacco. And we'll looking about the policies, it starts with the board charters you're saying, and how they conduct themselves. Because the training, I think we've done enough training. I think it's about of mindset, and like Dede observes, there are Saccos you can say they have moved. I would not say the dichotomy is young, old, and all that. I think for us, we have seen across the spectrum where old directors respect the CEO and they respect that space, and there's a very conservative approach. You have the learned who want to do everything. So we have seen a mix, and we recognize it. But I think the approach we want to have is great. We shall intrude more and more in the boardroom so that we tell you, we demand the minutes, we demand what discussions are happening, and even in our inspection, we now have moved to a level where we will have a meeting with the chairman. How is he running his board? As part of the inspection, it's not just a question of looking at the minutes. You engage them, because some of these cultures need to be now tackled head on, because guidelines we have issued and we shall issue, but we are feeling we need now to tweak. And when we bring the M, it will be a rating on the M on how effectiveness, and the principle is you cannot have very good governance and your numbers are not right. So the financials, your balance sheet and everything else must talk to the M. M is about the board, is about management, and therefore it's something that is very active for us. And indeed, we recognize that the regulations as they are, they provide very clear guidance, including Regulation 64.2 in terms of the responsibility of the CEO. But we are asking ourselves, why is it not happening at the, and that therefore, while we may not come to the board like cooperative officers, that we will not do. We'll only come to read the report, or there is an action we want to take, but not to sit there with them. That we will not do. However, I think is an issue we must also take up, and luckily Commissioner sits in our board, so that we see how do we also ensure that the cooperative officers are doing their advisory role at whatever level. And you recall, so those of you, I don't know, Mugambi, or even you may remember this, back in 2011, we had given a circular that they should not sit in the board. We had given a circular. Maybe it's time we revisit that. And the uproar was very bad. So we said there cannot be, disengagement, just abrupt disengagement, but our position was they should not sit in the board. We want to hold the board to account in the business management and performance of the Sacco. But when the government officer is sitting there and advising them, there is a conflict. We'll have to open that conversation, because that time it became, that is the days of PCO and the like. It was really bad that time, and therefore I think it was actually circular number 16 or 17, Peter, the infamous. It was 15. We had to them off for any Sacco license off. Now, then after conversation, they said, okay, let's have them disengage, and we leave the Saccos to invite them on a need basis. And that's why my colleague was saying, when you are agreeing with them, then who invites this? But it has come to our also notice that at times you may not be consulted. It is the HONSEC who will do the notice, and he copies the officer, and they come. But the question is, and some of you do, you invite them when you need them, not that they are permanent there as a director. Okay, and those are issues now we need to take up, because it brings conflict, and especially when, again, decisions are made that don't go down well. But matters governance, as we speak with the chairpersons, one of the conversations we want to have is exactly this kind of conversation where we say, look, what is the problem? What is the fear? What is the concern? Because some of you are getting it right, others are not getting it right. And so long as we get this no demarcation between the CEO and the board, then we shall have this name tag that cooperatives, including yourself who have done so much, there is poor governance, which is far from the truth, knowing how far we have come as persons. So regulations 2020 for us, they speak for what institutionally our position on governance issues, and we want to take that further. So let's, from these guidelines, if you check on them, there's a lot. We have tried to tighten, including in subsidiaries. We are saying they should not sit, the way they would just sit. There's no clear criteria for identifying who should represent the Sacco's interest. If you look at those guidelines, we are trying to direct them that board has to sit and say who will sit there, and there must be a mechanism of reporting back to the Sacco if the Sacco has interest there. And that director who represents their reports back to the board. And more importantly, at the end of the year, there must be amalgamation, and the board must say which reports are we getting. Now, when we have that inspiration, we are saying that's when we come now to inspect, those are the issues minimum we shall be expecting. So the point here is we are alive, that the governance issue is very, is one that is has caused a lot of pains to most of you, but we also celebrate that there are, there are also good milestones that we have made as an industry, and including some of you. I asked some of the chairpersons, treasurer, why do you have to sign the checks in this day and age? And some of you with COVID, we hear they are now moving away. Of course, at the end of the day, there is a question, CEO of Solution meant, there is a question of remuneration and all that. Another big subject. But I would say is a conversation that we must continue, but you must also help us a lot. And that is why we believe that for the CEOs to protect, there is a protection which must be provided through the structures we put in place. But more importantly, I think having a structured way, not necessarily formal. You can have working groups that enable us to learn more from each other and to share more. And one of the things tomorrow we'll be asking the chairpersons, what is wrong? If, like I said, in the Sacco Central, we have worked very well. The boards do the steering committee, but they are supported by the working groups. Why can't you then constitute yourself subject areas like technology, where cybersecurity comes? Issues of operations, like we talked about, operational risk comes under that. Conversation can start in the industry, and when we position ourselves to drive the business, it is a technology, gradually you'll see ourselves now advancing to a structured and legally supported protection of your positions. Because after that, there is a governance. What your voice about governance? Because that talks to staff and all that. Other countries, you realize they have a serious caucus on CEOs that drives the agenda in the industry. And I know some of you who have been to DE internationally, you'll find as we get to the next level of Sacco industry development, we'll not avoid these things. And it's a conversation at Sasra. We'll take the challenge to engage yourselves, to engage the chairperson, so that gradually we find a middle ground, like already in the Cooperative Bill 2022, there are clear indications that there are things that we must do different. Like issue of supervisory committee, that one I think it's very clear. Our position is very clear. And because other things that would have cured some of these is, they were dropped. We don't want to discuss them, yes, but I think for us, when it comes to the next level of development, like participating in national payment system, governance issues will have to be there. In fact, our thinking and our belief is that we need to move to a level where you have the chair of the board, and then you have board committees. The prescriptive approach that we adopted, where we are very clear, credit, education, and all that. If I ask some of you, you no longer have those committees. Yeah, but because those positions are in the bylaw, it gives them the notion we are the ones which should. But now, if we deconstruct, we say, look here, like CEO of IG said, we cannot be cherry picking best practices. And then some of them we say, no, we must take, we say, board is oversight and strategy. We have the chair of the board and we constitute board committees. And then they can be reconstituted anytime. But having these permanent positions, those were framed on the context of management committee, which was very much operational board. But we are now saying for DT Saccos, where we are, we have now to be bold enough to push this agenda to a level where we don't have those positions being protected in the, in the bylaws and all that, because that's what gives them the mandate. Because they're saying the instrument of creation assign that responsibility to me. In fact, I think I've had those conversations. We have had those conversations where we say, what is the role of a CEO if you compare with what is defined for the treasurer in the bylaw? He's literally the CFO. So those are conversations that we must take. And I think we want to have open conversation about them. We shall challenge the thinking, but we hope you'll also be able to add your voice without appearing, it's not protecting your interests, about changing and being real to the realities of the business, because the businesses you are running are complex. That's why you're having COO, you're having GMs. So if the board is agreeing to that, then what is the role of these positions? So that's a conversation that we must continue. In the guidelines, because we have not changed the regulations, we couldn't reflect that. But if you look at our regulations, our guidelines, we are very futuristic. And I would be happy some of you who have not read it, look at them, so that some of the issues you are saying, you tell us, hey, this governance does not seem to recognize a position of the CEO, can need to be incorporated here as a critical governance structure, so that it is seen in the right context. So I think what I want to commit to is that we recognize the role you play. If you have any doubt, look at regulations 2020, and gradually we should be able to pick. But I'll warn you, regulations are not changed. We don't change regulations. You don't repeal all of them, like lawyers will tell you. The strategy is to pick, cherry pick. If we agree it's governance, it's capital, take those ones, amend. Then amend the painful points. Don't go to attacking the regulation 2010 and overhauling all of it. We shall lose even the good regulations that are there. So as our appeal is, we are looking at capital adequacy, but I think the governance is the next one. But we felt we could not do that at this point without starting this conversation, so that we can discuss. Then we have the chairman, we discuss, then we agree. What do we need to change? Then the jury can start there. But the governance guidelines, I think I want you to look at them critically. Tell us what we need to change. We may consider delaying the release, but we invite you, you are the business experts, look at them and tell us, we need to add this thing about the role of the CEO in the governance as a, is it non-executive? What do you call them? The CEO ex officio.
CEO is ex officio, but he's executive.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So those elements, we strengthen them so that they speak to the problems. Otherwise, we have drafted them with the idea to improve governance, and together we can enrich them. But I think what you want you to take is that we are ready to have conversation around governance. A conversation with the commissioner also is that he desires, apparently we are appointed almost the same time. So there are ideas we are saying we must change, because there are a lot of things we can discuss, but we don't deal with the governance area, then we shall only be talking to ourselves. So you have many allies out there, play your role. Then we shall play our role, and together there'll be light at the end of the tunnel dead. Okay? So I think I'll stop there and ask, finally, I think we must agree on this. I had biannual meetings. I had annual meetings. How often do we meet? Yes? Annual. Every 2 years. Oh, twice a year. Oh, okay, so biannual. Now, meaning before December, we should have a meeting. Okay? Between that now and that time, how do we make sure that if it's cybersecurity, we are doing something? How do we hold ourselves to accountable, especially on your side? How do you engage? Because convening all of you here is impossible. You cannot be taking your time like this. So how do you make sure? So for that, I'll throw it to you. I had asked Solomon, who is your organizer of the forum, to tell me something. I don't know whether he delegated to anybody. George, any conversation around that at your? Okay, fine. So, very good. So, very good. So I think for me, I think we more or less, that's our wish, that we have a structured way of engaging, so that when we now convene the next one, we can actually be very clear on the agenda, and you'll also have an input. Otherwise, I think with those very many, words, I want to say we are very committed to, in collaboration, but we want to see results. So when you see me pushing you hard, I don't want you to sit here, CEOs, for 2 days, and then we still say we carry forward. I think they say perfection is the enemy of good. So make the good, you will perfect as you go along. Thank you very much. Back to the moderator, Mr. Were.
Thank you so much. I think it's been long sitting. I hope the tea is still there. If the hotel has not disappeared with it, we will verify as we leave you with the bell ringer. Somebody will be praying for us. But as we finish that, because we want to leave you to talk alone. Sisi tunataka kuhama. I think tomorrow's session, I think Pio, you can guide on tomorrow's session and how we go about it. And then you ask somebody to pray for the entire session. Then Sasra team, you can pack your things and get off. Thank you. Asanteni sana.
Yes, he has clarified it's not a bell ringer, it's a timekeeper. so sorry for that. Tomorrow's session is just the way we explained, that we'll convene together with your chairs tomorrow at that time, which is 8 is registration. Then from 8:45 we'll start, of course, with the introduction. This time round, microphone will not go around, will consume a lot of time. Perhaps we'll just be able to acknowledge the circles that are available there. Otherwise, if we do microphone, it will take time. 2, we've identified the 3 CEOs who have not registered there. So the risk is on your side, so decide whether you'll register or not. We have so many redress mechanisms, including informing your chair that you didn't attend. So the decision is yours. The prayer, I've been guided that you will pray after you've finished your own in-house, so we don't need to pray in advance. So allow us to leave. But we also tried here, so you can also acknowledge.